or you'd see people who have cobras on their necks and their hands, and then they're completely in a trance, and then people offer like coffee and butter to them, and then the cobra would actually descend from the person's body, lick the coffee and the butter, and come back, and then get on the person's body, and then you see spiritually, you see something mystically going on. So, and there's also this belief that Mount Olympus was actually Mount Hermon in Lebanon, and that it's a real place where these gods actually landed. So it's not just mythic or whatever. Like, there are people who really believe in this and like are spiritually very connected.
Yeah.
To this stuff. So
I am a devotee of Athena, Hermes, and Aphrodite. I've had mystical experiences. In regards to human sacrifice is actually considered absolutely abhorrent. If you look at the source material in the ancient sources, that was one of the things which one must not do, was get human blood, even from a cut on your hand, onto the altar, because it was to defile the altar, and it would bring the wrath of the gods upon your house. There are some exceptions to this. However, in Greece, pretty much across the board, I think by the 16th century BCE, that we can verify, human sacrifice was regarded as one of the most abhorrent things you could do. As for the use of snakes and sacred animals, that is not an area that I have studied extensively. However, sacred animals have been used in worship. And as for my own spiritual connections, I've had deep mystical experiences. I have not encountered a sacred animal in worship, would not be opposed to it. But I have felt the presence of the gods, and I have, trying to think of an appropriate way to word it. I have been knocked on my feet because I've been overwhelmed by the presence of Athena. I've cried because I've been overwhelmed by the presence of Demeter. So I would consider myself to have had some very deep spiritual and mystical experiences.
I guess my question was for, you said that I know you guys worship like the Zeus and Aphrodite and everyone like that. Is there any like core, I guess, god or like creator figure within your religion? Like your question about the Titans actually brought that to my mind. Like, do you believe in the Titans, not as like mythical, but like as that one source, like that one true god?
A creator god is not really explored within Hellenism. The worship of a creator god is not something we're particularly concerned with. The Titans and their worship, a little convoluted and confusing in how that's executed, because it is not done very much within contemporary American Hellenic Polytheism. However, I do know some people who worship the Titans as the kind of as you might want to say the progenitors of humanity, or kind of the beings which bestowed these very base gifts upon humans, such as breastfeeding, the waters, etc.
You brought up seers and diviners modifying religious holidays and stuff like that. So what is the prevalence of like seers and diviners in modern Hellenic polytheism? Like, how do you find them? How do you modify them?
A seer or diviner, also called a mantis, is qualified by their community and by their reputation. So if you have a reputation for giving accurate readings and for being genuinely, I guess, influenced by the gods, then you will have more people who come to you asking you to do divination for them, and your word on festivals, if a person needs to institute a festival or do a theoxenia feast, which is a means god hospitality, and it's a feast for the community where you eat with the god. And if the diviner has a good reputation, people are likely to believe him. If a diviner is new, they could be iffy, and if they have a history of making bad or disastrous predictions, they will not be trusted. And the thing which we proceed from in the art of divination is that the gods are the ones who bestow this gift upon humanity. We aren't doing it merely by our own power or our own kind of, I guess, inner power or whatever. We're doing it by the blessings of the gods for our community. So, be that as it may, though, it's generally considered good to compensate the diviner for his or her time, and because they have to make offerings and so on and so forth to continue being in good contact with the gods and being able to give us these ideas and predictions, etc.
Are there any type of modern supernatural occurrences that a Hellenist would experience?
Can you clarify what you mean?
Like going to Mantis or Diviner or something like that, where they, in a sense, kind of read what's going to happen for these people, outside of being moved to tears or certain senses of like personal euphoria when doing prayer or going through the rituals. I don't know, like miraculous healings or anything like that, gifted by the gods, any types of those occurrences?
Yes, there have been some reports of people being killed by Asclepius, one of our gods of healing, or being killed by Apollo, another god who bestows health upon man. There have been some reports from people who I feel are credible of possession by the gods and having these really ecstatic, frenzied dances because of, say, Dionysus. So, yeah, there are supernatural occurrences. However, there's also a strong line of thought that the gods are not going to bend the laws of reality and nature just for our benefit. Because we're humans. We're not the most important things in the universe. We are one species among this entire universe. So the gods, we can interact with them, and we can worship them and experience them, and they can bestow blessings upon us. However, a god is not going to defy, at least the idea is that the theoi are not going to defy other theoi for the sole purpose of pleasing a human. Because we're not, in the grand scheme of things, we're not the most important thing in the universe. And so why should they fight, amongst themselves and kind of interact with each other's wills if there's no real reason to do it?
So there's no real reason to do it, yet there have been stories of miracles happening by blessings through Apollo.
Well, there's no... Apollo has a dual nature of health and disease, so he bestows disease and he bestows health, and he can take away disease and take away health. What I was meaning is that the Zeus is not going to make someone levitate through the air and fly around. Somebody's not going to be brought back from the dead. This table is not going to magically change into a horse because I prayed really hard to Athena, or made all these offerings to Athena or whatever. And the reason why is because in many of our views, the natural laws and the way the world operates are manifestations and evidence of the power of the gods. So the way the world works and the way things happen, we cannot assume that the gods are going to change things merely for our benefit. So.
As far as divination, what tools do you use to do that? Like some cultures do like tarot and runes and bones. I mean, is there anything specific you use? Or?
We have several methods. Tarot cards are used. We cast letters, which the Greek alphabet has its set of letters, and each one actually has a specific meaning. Don't ask me what they are because I don't know. Some people may read the flights of birds or the appearance of animals and read animal, tracks or something like that. There's a variety of methods. As long as it works, it's a valid divination method. But there are a lot of different preferences.
Do the different preferences like mean anything specific, like the flights of birds, or is there a reason like someone's used other than?
Basically, whatever the person is best at.
Okay.
That is what tends to be used. Yeah.
As a supplicant, how do you choose which libations to offer? And as you're offering, are you chanting or singing, or if you could share, if you can't, because it's like confidential, I understand. I'm kind of curious about that part.
Occasionally, a libation may be accompanied with a hymn. Some people prefer to do it that way. Some people prefer to recite hymns before the libation is made. Common libations include olive oil and wine, milk and honey, and water. However, a person may libate anything that seems appropriate. The way that we know a libation is good or isn't good can be done through divination. It can be done through a personal feeling that the god does not want this as a libation, or the prayer just feels disconnected and like it didn't reach anything. So, for example, I libate coffee to Athena, but I don't libate coffee to Aphrodite because I had a distinct impression that Aphrodite does not want coffee as a libation, and then it was confirmed through divination. So there's variation, and there may be even conflicting opinions, but that's general. But wine is kind of the most common libation for us. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So, how did you get interested in this tradition? Number one. Number two, how do you view Greek epics such as Homer's texts? Because some gods and goddesses are described in those texts. Do you consider them as sacred texts? So, in my mind, I was making connection with the Hindu traditions and Hindu people. They would see a lot of parallels, and even some gods and goddesses that you mentioned, they have exact counterparts in Hindu traditions. So there is a one god who gets angry and brings some diseases, and he's also the god of health in Vedic text. So these gods and goddesses, and your own personal connection, how did you get it? And the third question is, why is this being revived? What is the purpose or goal?
Okay. On the first question, how did I get into it? I basically was very depressed. I was kind of at rock bottom. And I was also very drunk. And I, 18-year-old me, decided I'm going to pray to Athena, because why not? I was an atheist at the time. I was like, can't hurt anything. And I did. And I was surprised when someone answered. And it was an experience which I, to this day, describe as being pulled out of cold, dark water. Now, saying that, my depression was not cured. However, from that point onwards, I did start to have improvement and see ways on which I could fight the depression myself. As for the epics, we regard the Iliad and the Odyssey as sacred stories. They, again, going back to the system of interpretation and examining them for deeper meaning, we do use them for that. And the descriptions in there, many find useful, and it's just going to vary from person to person on how deep and how important they are. I personally like reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I have hopes to someday turn it into a play that doesn't bore people to tears. We'll see what happens. And what was your third question again?
Why revivalism?
Oh, why?
So connect to that, based on your response. So millions of people are depressed, but they don't suddenly wake up to Athena, goddess. Why? How did the connection happen?
It's one of those things, and I'm not entirely sure of why. I was vaguely acquainted with Greek mythology, but had no special love of it up to that point. I feel like there was work that she wants done, and that's why I had that experience, is to do the work that she'd have me do. Why is it being revived? The most basic answer and the bottom line is because the gods want it to be. We want people to be able to worship and experience these gods if that's what they so choose. And we want to have the resources available to them so that what was broken can be made whole once again. So we're trying to restore the worship because we proceed from the idea that not everybody is meant to worship every god. The God of the Christians and the God of Islam and the God of the Jews, we consider one God among many. And maybe not everybody is there to worship him. And so we want to have other options of these gods whom we love and who we adore and who we are devoted to out there in the world for people to know. We have about 1 minute, so we have a quick question. No? Okay, I want to say thank you for allowing me this chance to speak, and I appreciate all of your time.
Okay, thanks everybody, and